Hello, this is the second day on analyzing graphs. We have 3 more practice problems to kind of help us with all of our analysis of graphs. We're first going to do problem number 1 together, and as you can see, I have typed in some hints here in red. So as you go to subsequent problems, these are kind of the questions you should ask yourself as you're going through these ones. So your domain is how far left and right your graph goes. This one here, anything that goes off the graph grid, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put arrows on the end, just kind of assume that there should be arrows there. So therefore, this graph goes to the left for forever, which is negative infinity, and then to the right for forever, which is positive infinity. Your range is going to be low to high, so this graph does actually not go down for forever. It stops kind of right here. That's the lowest value. It is my y value here of -3. So the lowest my graph gets is -3. It actually touches it, so I'm going to use a bracket. And then my graph goes up for forever, so that's up to positive infinity. For your x-intercepts, you're going to look at where your graph crosses the x-axis. It happens twice, once at -5 and once at 7. So I'm going to write these as points, -5, 0, and 7, 0. My y-intercept is where my graph crosses my y-axis, so I can look at that and I can see it's 0, -2.5. And again, I'm writing that as my point. My relative max and relative min, those are going to be turning points. So as you can see, this graph goes down and then up. There is one turning point. It is at this point 1, -3, which means since there's only one, we're going to have a maximum or a minimum. We're not going to have both. Since this is a low point, this is a minimum value. So my minimum here is going to be 1, -3, and I don't have any maximums because I don't ever go up and then come back down. For increasing and decreasing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace my graph from left to right. So I start at the left. I notice that my graph here is going down first. It is decreasing. And then all of a sudden, at this turning point, my graph then starts to increase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at from left to right. All the way on the left is negative infinity. All the way on the right is positive infinity. Where I stopped decreasing and started increasing is at this value right here when x is 1. So I'm going to use this x value of 1 when I am describing increasing and decreasing, because I'm talking about all of my x values. So I know that I was decreasing here, and then all of a sudden I started increasing because that's how I labeled my graph. So for decreasing, it's going to start left to right, and so it starts at negative infinity. I'm going to go to decreasing again. Decreasing starts at negative infinity and stops when x is 1. Now, increasing and decreasing, these will always use parentheses. They will never use brackets. So I'll say that and write it. Increasing and decreasing, oh, there we go, always will use parentheses. It will never use brackets. Okay? So looking at this, that's why decreasing is negative infinity to 1 with a parentheses there. Now I'm going to look at my increasing interval. My increasing started here when x was 1 and increased to the right for forever. So my increasing is going to start with 1 and go to the right for forever. Now my end behavior here. So let's go ahead and look at the ends of the graph. I'm going to go ahead and erase the labels that I've put here so that we can see this a little bit better. So this first one, as x goes to positive infinity, that is saying as you go to the right, which way is our graph going? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trace my graph all the way as far right as I can. And I can see my arrow here is pointing up. That is pointing towards positive infinity. So as I go to the right, my graph is pointing up. And the next one here, as x goes to negative infinity, is saying as you're going to the left of your graph, where is your graph going? So I'm going to trace my graph to the left. And notice here on the left here, my graph is also pointing up. So on the left, my graph is going up to positive infinity. So now we're going to do greater than 0 and less than 0. So I'm going to go ahead and erase these so we can again use a fresh graph. I'm going to look at this x-axis. I'm going to kind of draw this x-axis in, and I'm going to ask myself, where is my graph above? This is the above the x-axis. And I see two different parts. I see this part over here and this part over here. So I always want to go from left to right. So starting on the left for forever, so the left for forever is actually starting at negative infinity. And then my graph stops being above when x is negative 5. And then it starts again when my value is 7. And then it goes to the right for forever. Anytime it goes to the right for forever, you're talking about positive infinity. So my graph is above the x-axis on the left for forever up until negative 5, and then starting at 7 and going to the right for forever. Whereas this next one is asking where is it below the x-axis. And so for this one, we only have one chunk here below. It starts when x is negative 5 and ends when x is positive 7. So the less than 0 is everything in between negative 5 and 7. Okay, so we're going to try another one here. Notice that there are no hints, so we have to kind of ask ourselves those questions as we go. Our domain is left to right. So our graph here would have arrows on the left for forever and to the right for forever. So our domain is negative infinity to positive infinity. Our range is low to high. Our graph goes down for forever and up for forever. So this one has a domain and range that are the same. Our graph crosses the x-axis in 3 different spots when x is negative 2, 0, and 3. So it's negative 2, 0, 0, 0, and 3, 0. Our graph crosses the y-intercept at one spot, 0, 0. For our maxes and mins, I'm going to try my tracing my graph idea and see how that goes. My graph is going up, then switches to down, and then goes back up. So notice how I changed up here and I changed down here. There are two turning points. One is a high point. The high point is the max. One is a low point. The low point is the min. So the high point is here at negative 1, 4. So this part up here, that's your max. So negative 1, 4. Your low point is down here. That's going to be your min. So that is going to be at, let's estimate that at, I'll just say 2, negative 8 to make it nice. If it's not clearly identified, I will definitely accept estimation because it's not clearly identified. Now those maxes and mins are going to help us do our increasing and our decreasing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my number line up here. That number line is not essential, but what it does is it helps us look at only x values. So we don't get tempted to write any y values as like how high it's going up or how low it's going down. I'm just looking at where it's going up and where it's going down. So on the left of the number line is always negative infinity for your x values. On the right is always positive infinity. Our graph stops increasing and starts decreasing here. This value here is when x is negative 1. And then our graph stops decreasing and starts increasing here when x is 2. And so we said that first our graph was increasing and then decreasing and then increasing again. And so what we're going to do is we are going to write out 2 increasing intervals and then only 1 decreasing interval. So my increasing interval here is going to happen all the way on the left when x is negative infinity until this x value of -1. Increasing and decreasing, as a reminder, always uses parentheses. And so my increasing then starts again when x is 2, with a parentheses again, and ends to the right for forever. My decreasing was this interval in the middle. It's in between these two x values, so it's in between when x is -1 and when x is +2. The next one, as we go to the right, where is our graph going? And as we trace our graph to the right, our graph is going up to +infinity. As we go to the left, we have to ask ourselves, where is our graph pointing? It is pointing down. And so when it points down, it's pointing towards -infinity. And so now we only have two more parts here. Where is your graph above the x-axis and where is it below the x-axis? So I'm actually going to just do a quick resketch over here so that we can keep our increasing and decreasing notes. And so what's really important for this one is the x-intercepts. And so while I might not be going up and down as high as my graph goes, what I'm doing is I'm making sure it's crossing at the same spots. Okay, so this is kind of a smaller version of our graph here. So we're looking for where our graph is above the x-axis, and that's two different chunks there. And then the other part is asking where's our graph below the x-axis, and I see two different chunks there. So as a reminder, on the left, we're going to use -infinity for our x values. On the right, we're going to use a +infinity for our x values. We have an x value here of -2, an x value here of 0, and an x value here of 3. So now we just have to figure out where the greater than and less than is going to be. So like this blue part here is in between -2 and 0. And then it's also above, again, starting at 3 and going to the right for forever. It's below, starting at the left for forever until -2. And then it starts going below again at 0 until when x is 3. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at one more. So we're going to go ahead, domain is going to be negative to +infinity, as is your range, because you're going left and right for forever and low to high for forever. Our x-intercepts is going to be like -1.8, 0, and 2.6, 0. This is again estimates. My y-intercept is 0, -3. I have two low points. Those are your minimum values. So -1, -8, and 2, -5. I have one high point. It's kind of like 0.7, -1.1. I am increasing. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the spots where I'm increasing, this one here and this one here. And then I am decreasing for 2 as well. So I'm once again going to do my number line here. Left is -infinity, right is +infinity. This value here was -1. This one here we said was 0.7 or approximately that. And then this one here was 2. And so now here I can see this part was decreasing, so was this. So that's going to be from -infinity until 0.7. And then again from, -infinity to -1. And then 0.7 to 2. The decreasing intervals were this one and this one, which happens from -1 to 0.7. And then again from 2 to infinity. On the right, our graph is going up, and on the left, our graph is, our left is also going up. So on the left, our graph is going up to +infinity. For the greater than and less than, we're looking for where our graph is above the x-axis, which will have 2 spots, and then below will only have 1. And I'll go ahead and post that so you can check your answers there. Thank you very much.